Hi folks. Now just a word about a couple of stories I saw in the media in the last few weeks. One of them was actually today, and it was an article in the German media, I think it was, and it was like based on Europe, and it was basically heads of industry, I think, or big business in Europe who were looking for over 750,000 more ICT workers, that's tech workers, that were urgently needed in Europe by 2020. So basically over the next 2 years, they want over 750,000 people to come in. And here's the key phrase here. They said from outside the EU. Now, why did they say that? Well, the reason they said that, they're not talking about Switzerland, they're not talking about Norway, they're not talking about these rich countries which are outside the EU. They are talking about places like the Middle East, like Africa, like India, like China, like parts of South America and Central America. In other words, people who will work for significantly less than Europeans. And this is deliberate, First of all, you have to be aware there is no skills gap. There is no skills gap. Whenever you see this phrase skills gap, 9 times out of 10 it's nonsense. And the other time, the 10th time out of 10, it's hugely exaggerated. There might be a skills gap, but it's tiny. The reality is Europeans couldn't do these jobs, and there are plenty of Europeans that could do these jobs. However, Europeans won't do the jobs for next to nothing. Europeans will look for a decent wage, but our greedy big business people are not willing to pay those big wages. And this is not even big wages, what am I saying? Just average wages, just reasonable wages, And this is the thing, this is the whole neoliberal agenda. It was brought in, all the free trade agreements of the last 25, 30, 35 years, these were deliberately brought in order to make big profits for big business. That is all it was about. And to bring in cheap labor and to outsource jobs to countries where they'll work for significantly less than the domestic population. And this has been disastrous for Europe, and it's been continuing now, particularly for especially the last 2 decades, two and a half decades. When the GATT, G-A-A-T, and the World Trade Organization, that was a huge global free trade agreement in 1994, I think it came in, and since then especially, it's been particularly disastrous for manufacturing across the first world. And this is why we've seen more and more of a services economies in Europe now compared to what we were previously, where there was an awful lot of manufacturing. So this is deliberate, and it's also part of the bigger agenda here as well, is not just to drive down wages, it's also to undermine the native population, undermine the family structure of the domestic population in Europe and in general across the first world. And really what they want to do, the long game is they want to create multicultural societies all across the first world, all across Europe, filled with people who are atomized, who are not necessarily part of any family structure, who are living in cities mostly, or certainly big urban centers. And because they don't have any families, so to speak, and because religion has been so denigrated and ridiculed by the establishment and by the media and so on, they turn to consumerism, and consumerism becomes their god. And that is all part of the plan. That is the neoliberal agenda. Make consumerism the religion for all of these people of various different races and cultures who have no allegiance to the society, no allegiance to the nation. That's also a key part of it. The more people you can bring in from other countries into Europe and into first world countries generally, the less likely they will feel any allegiance to that country. And in fact, they will try to bring more of their own in, more of their own family, extended family, friends, etc. All of it contributes to breaking down the social fabric of the country. And that's a deliberate act. And that is what's going on, especially over the last 20, 25 years in Europe, in the States, in Australia, in Canada, in New Zealand, in any first world country, in any white country. This is what's going on. And like I said, it's a deliberate plan. I'm sure the Kalergi the Kalergi plan is part of this as well. It mightn't be the entire picture, but it's certainly part of it. So I would say the neoliberal agenda, along with aspects of Kalergi, this is what's going on, and you can't ignore the Jewish angle as well. There's certainly people high up in the media, in politics, in big business who are driving this as well. So there is that Jewish angle too, where there seems to be this almost obsession with making every country multicultural, and and from really undermining, I think, Christian society, Christian white European society, and countries that have predominantly white people of European heritage. And it's sad and it's sick and it's going on, and we need to let people know about this, folks. So I would encourage you to share this video with people, and I'll put some links in the description below of other people that I listen to, I think are very good and maybe better than me at explaining the big picture. And hopefully from all of this we can get more people red-pilled, and perhaps in time we can start to turn back the tide on all this evil agenda that's going on over the last number of years.